Alright, party people. Well, I wanted to wait until we were able to test out more of the toolbox changes fully. So now that I've done some testing with the toolboxes, we're going to be able to confirm some information regarding toolboxes. So, as you know, with the last patch, toolboxes received a significant upgrading in decreasing the amount of charges while increasing the repair speed. So, your brown toolboxes have gone from 80 charges down to 16. The yellow toolbox went from either, I think it was either 100, I think it was 120, it was either 120 or 140. I think it was 120 down to just 20. The mechanics toolbox also went from 80 to 16 charges, as did the engineer's toolbox. The Alex's toolbox went from 120 to 24, and the commodious toolbox went from 180 to 32. So, what we're going to be talking about today are add-ons. We're going to talk about each single add-on. We're going to talk about each single toolbox. Every toolbox in the game does have a singular purpose use as of right now. I think you can get some value out of every single toolbox. So, the first thing we're going to do is look at the toolboxes themselves. Now, for toolboxes, they want you to use toolboxes as a very quick way to finish off a generator for no real reason, or no real benefit. So for example, if you just find a brown toolbox in a chest, they want you to use it on a generator to quickly get it done when the killer's in your face. To be honest, the 1 to 2 seconds that you lose from getting off the generator with R1 and switching to R2 is simply not worth the time lost, especially if the killer is on the way. The best way I use toolboxes is to quickly bum rush a gen up. If multiple survivors run good toolboxes and can rush multiple gens up, there is some value. Now, the common thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the amount of time that you have with a toolbox is no longer in seconds. Those 16 charges in the brown toolbox go by very quickly. So, like, right now, as was before, this was probably what your best toolbox in the game was going to be. You'd put on the commodious, you would have put on wire spools for extra, and you would have put on swivel sockets. And this would probably be your best toolbox in the game. You could very easily get done 2 to 3 gens off the one toolbox, just leave it one tap, and if you got out the game, you had this setup. Well, also now you don't save add-ons. This is also no longer the best toolbox in the game. So the first thing we're going to do is divide toolboxes into Sabo or Repair. So first off, you have the Alex's toolbox, which is your premium Sabo toolbox. Now, if you're going to be going for a Sabo and you're playing solo, I would recommend the Commodious because of the extra charges that has at 32, and I would recommend it from the Hacksaw and the Cutting Wire, if this is what you're going for, if you're using the Commodious. Now, the Hacksaw increases the toolbox's sabotage speed, and the Cutting Wire also does the same thing. So right now, it only takes about 2 to 3, I think it's either 2.5 or 3 seconds to Sabo with a toolbox. The Cutting Wire cuts this down, I believe, to 2.5, and the Hacksaw by itself cuts it down to 1.5 to 2 seconds, and these two add-ons together put it at 1 second flat. So these two on a Commodious toolbox, you will get a ton of Sabos on. So this is a decent build if you're running Sabo. Now the other thing we have is the Alex's toolbox. Now this automatically has the sabotage speed. The other add-ons that you want to run here is your grip wrench and your protective gloves. These are the other two Sabo add-ons. Everything else here is pretty much going to be used for toolboxes, for repair toolboxes. So we're just going to cover these 4 items off the bat. So because this has the considerable sabotage increase, you don't need the bonus from Hacksaw or the bonus from Cutting Wire. You want to go in with the grip wrench, and you want to go in with protective gloves. Protective gloves prevents the killer from getting the noise notification whenever you Sabo a hook with the toolbox. And the grip wrench makes it so that the hooks sabotaged using the toolbox take an extra 15 seconds to respawn. If you're going for Sabo, this right here is the best add-on in the entire game for Sabo, because of the fact that those extra 15 seconds are very critical. It's only going to stay broken for 30 seconds. So getting it to 45 seconds can be critical, especially if the killer's running Iron Grasp and Agitation. On top of that, the Protective Gloves just gives you a bit of stealth. If you're going for a Blood Point farm as well, just running around with an Alex's Toolbox, saboing with a 100% Boldness add-on to get the maximum Blood Points, this is a decent one as well for, like, fucking around and doing that stuff. When it comes to the others, obviously you're not going to be able to use, like, Engineers or Mechanics and stuff like that. I would not recommend it at all. You can, but there's no point. These two are clearly designed for getting generators up. And the brown one I also would not recommend unless you're running add-ons. If you're running add-ons, I would say put on like a wire spool and a hacksaw for this. If you're looking for your best brown toolbox sabo combo, I would say this is what it is. But to be honest, you shouldn't really be using a brown toolbox for that. Brown toolboxes have a place right now. The yellow toolbox is pretty much where it's at. I think with the yellow toolbox, you can get away with putting on the cutting wire instead of the hacksaw, and you can get away with putting on scraps instead of wire spool, because it's a bit beefier. So this will give you 28 charges, slightly more than a Alex's Toolbox by default, and it's not going to be as fast as an Alex's Toolbox, but this is a pretty cheap way to make your own Alex's Toolbox. You know, obviously you can put the hacksaw on if you wanted that, but... Alright, so that's the Sabo toolboxes. Now we're going to be covering your basic toolboxes. So, we're going to put on a brown medkit, and we're going to look at all of the add-ons in the game, because I actually do need to talk to perks in order to do this. So the first thing that we have that we want to cover is the brand new perk. Now, what's very important to note is that 16 charges equates to 8 seconds. Therefore, now. So what that means is you are not going to be getting a lot of value. Mind you, the brand new part takes place over 5 seconds, and it's actually 6. Or what people don't understand how the animation counts. So, this means that you have literal 2 seconds of usage on this afterwards. Now, a lot of people say, well, let's put a wire spool on. You're basically adding an additional 6 seconds of use to a pretty shitty-ass toolbox. If you're going to be running a brown toolbox with a brand new part, then probably the best thing you can do is to run it like this, just to get the brand new part on the generator. This is what I would call. And by the way, the instructions add-on to eliminate skill checks while repairing the generator is not going to work with the brand new part. You are going to get those skill checks, so don't try it. Something I would probably say would be a good thing to put on for something like this is spring clamps. The noise reduced by repairs is reduced by 8 meters. We're going to talk about this add-on in a little bit. The other thing I would say as well is if you want to run a brand new part, I would highly recommend putting a brand new part on a yellow toolbox. So this is going to take off 6 seconds. You'll have another 6 seconds of use on the yellow toolbox. You could pair this with something like a swivel socket or a clean rag. These add-ons have also changed as well. So before, the way repair speed worked is the amount of charges that were in a toolbox is the amount of seconds you had. Because they increased the repair speed of the generator. I was about to say the heal speed of the generator. Excuse me. Because they increased the heal speed of the generator, fuck it, let's go with it. It used to mean that, for example, this yellow toolbox right here would be 20 seconds. Now what this means is that it's 10 seconds, because the increase in repair speed was put into charges. This means that it's worth 2 charges. Now, the clean rag used to increase the toolbox repairs, slightly increase the toolbox repair speed by 0.25 per second. What that meant was, I'll put on a brown toolbox so I can explain it a bit better. So a brown toolbox used to be 80 charges, which was enough for one generator if you did not hit a great skill check, if there was no, like, fan out or dying light, no great skill check, no prove thyself, nobody fucks up, one-man gen. Just one man on a gen with a toolbox, if they got no skill checks the entire time. You had 80 seconds, which was one gen. This meant that that with no slowdown, it would take 80 toolbox charges per... It would take 80 toolbox charges to complete one generator. Alright? Each charge was 1 second. So one charge equals 1 second. When you would add the clean rag, which slightly increased the repair speed, this was sped up by 0.25. This meant that every 4 charges was actually worth 5. So it slightly extended the life. And then going up to the swivel socket increased this 2.5 charges. This meant that every 2 charges equaled 1 more. So this made it possible to extend the toolbox by an additional 20 charges. You're going to say the math is wrong? Well, it makes an extra 40 charges then. No, it doesn't. The way the game works is that whenever you would complete, unless you had the 2 together, you could then get to 40 charges. So this right here, the double repair speed add-on on the old toolbox, is what enabled people to gen rush. On this, it doesn't really do much. Mind you, this now is 8 charges. This is 8 seconds, if you want to compare it to the old one. What these 2 add-ons do is they increase the repair speed bonus in those 8 seconds. Now there is an actual set speed per second on it. And these add-ons increase it by a significant amount. So for example, by moderately increasing the repair speed, you are repairing the generator at, because it still runs on 80 charges, by the way. This gives you 2 charges per second. The slightly increased the toolbox repair speed adds an additional half charge, and the swivel sockets adds an additional 1 charge. This means running this toolbox right here gives you 3.5 charges per second. So basically the equivalent of 3.5 seconds of repair time for every 1 second. Mind you, you have 8 seconds, so right there, it's not particularly great. This toolbox right here gives you about 25 seconds of repair time in 8 seconds. So you're going to get about a quarter of a gen. So if you want to run a brand new part, you can pretty much just run a brand new part to put the 25% on. If you want to run a yellow toolbox, this is probably your most flexible right now. You can pop a brand new part, you can pop pretty much any add-on as long as it's not instructions, and you'll get some value out of it. You can get a little bit of value out of clean rag, you can get a little bit of value out of wire spool, spring clamp, swivel socket, scraps. Brand new part right now is still the best add-on in the game, hands down. So we're going to talk about the special toolboxes, and then we'll come back. So for your engineer's toolbox, this tremendously increases repair speed. This toolbox gives you a total of 3 charges per second. However, it still functions as the same way as the other toolboxes. So you notice that it says tremendously increased repair speed. That means that you consume 3 charges. But it's not 3 charges per second to where, well, that's really only 5 seconds right there. No. It's still the same 8 seconds that the brown toolbox has, but it does 3 charges per second. So you're getting 24% out of this without any add-ons. The best thing you can do for this is to put on a wire spool and scraps. This gives you an additional 20 charges. So you now have a total of 28 charges, and you get 3 charges per second. And you're basically getting 3 charges per second. So you're looking at 28 seconds. Or, well, no, not 28. That's 10. Sorry, my math is off. I haven't had coffee yet. 10. You're looking at 18 seconds, and you're getting 3 charges per second. That's a pretty good value out of this one toolbox right here. For this one right here, the mechanics, this is 2.5 charges per second. And if you put on the wire spool and the scraps, so you look right here, this is going to be another 10, 8, another 18. You're getting 2.5 charges per second at 18 seconds, so you're looking at about 35% of the gen roughly. Not bad. The other thing we're going to talk about now, we're going to talk about best builds for the Commodious toolbox. So the Commodious toolbox this is where builds start to come in. Commodious toolbox is kind of interesting. So, first off, you could put a swivel socket on and extra charges. This right here would give you an extra 16. An extra 24 charges. The bonus here would bump it up. So, you would be working at 3 charges per second for 24 seconds. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. You know, pretty much any of the add-ons work. There's a couple things I want to talk about specifically, though. I think the best build right now that you can do these perks off. I think the best build you could probably do right now is actually going to be to run Streetwise with this Wire Spool, the Scraps, and the Commodious. So the key here is that the big complaint that everyone has is that you can't get generators done with one toolbox. So having Streetwise makes it so that you reduce the consumption rate by 25%, and you have 2 charge add-ons. So this is essentially, this is an extra 20 charges onto a Commodious, which is 52 charges. That equates out to 26 seconds of toolbox usage. Mind you, the repair speed means you're going to be healing your... Yes, the heal speed on the generator is in fact 2 charges per second. Which means 26 times 2, you're looking at 52% of a generator off this toolbox. Now, if you're hitting great skill checks and you're running Streetwise and you have another person on the generator, you can actually get a gen out of a Commodious toolbox. Otherwise, with the Streetwise, you're extending it a little bit. You might be able to get close to 75%, especially if you're hitting great skill checks or just not fucking it up. But this right here is probably the best if you want to try and get as close to one whole generator that done as possible. The other thing I'm going to talk about is going to be what I call the stealth toolbox. I've got to find the perks for it. Hang on. This build specifically requires 2 key perks in order to be effective. So the whole point of this right here is this is what we like to call the silent generator. So Technician is a perk that not a lot of people use. It makes it so that every time you fail a repair skill check, there is a 50% chance that the explosion, which is the notification that the killer gets, will be prevented. It also reduces the noise caused by your repairs by 8 meters. There is now the add-on, the spring clamp, which makes it so that the noise caused by your repairs is reduced by 8 meters. These 2 effects do stack. So having these 2 add-ons together means that while you are using the toolbox, you are going to be reducing the sound that you can hear a generator being repaired by 16 meters. The key to note is how generator repairs work. The audible range of a generator being repaired for every 20 goes up for every 25% that the generator is being worked on. Essentially, the way it works is it has a 16-meter repair radius. This effect goes up by 4 meters every 25% of the gen. So when you hit 25% of the gen, the killer can hear it from within about 4 meters. It goes up to 8 at about 50%, 12 at 75%, and 16 at 100%. This add-on right here, the instructions, is actually only pretty much valuable on this build because it means, as the way it works, mind you, Spine Chills has 36-meter terror radius. There are 36 meters. Whenever the killer is looking in your direction, you can use your R1, and then when Spine Chill activates, you can pop the toolbox on. So the Technician and the spring clamp will make it so that you do not have that large noise while working on a generator, especially if it's close completion. And the instructions makes it so that there are no skill checks while using the toolbox. This means that if you need to quickly get off the toolbox, you don't have to worry about blowing the gen. Combining that with Technician at the beginning as you're getting off, it basically makes this the ultimate stealth generator build, in terms of if you're trying to, like, stealth a generator. So anyways, there you have it in terms of your ultimate toolbox guide for Dead by Daylight. I hope this has been some valuable information.